You guys, I still have chills. I am freaking out. We have to talk about all things Limetown. Stay tuned.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. We are talking episode 1 and 2 of Limetown. With me, I have a huge fan of the podcast, the wonderful Susie G. What's up, girl?
Guys? So excited to be here.
I know, right? Oh, man. We were just finishing watching it and I was freaking out. I'm your host, Delia Gomez, and we are going to talk a little bit about these 2 episodes that just premiered tonight. Girl, you got to let me know. What are your thoughts?
Creepy.
Yes.
Spooky. Crazy. I mean, I'm a big fan of the podcast. Love it.
Yeah.
And so, love Jessica Biel. Love Stanley Tucci. And honestly, like, I have the chills. I'm just kind of like, I'm in shock. It was translated so well for me from the podcast into the show. It's great.
It's
amazing.
It's so good. I have to say that, like, watching it, I still am like kind of trying not to look over my shoulder every once in a while. It has this like kind of creepy-esque. I have so many questions, and I'm just like I'm still like having a moment. I'm still not over it.
There are a lot of questions.
Yeah.
That I want to know now, but we're going to have to wait.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about Limetown. We're going to talk a little bit about the podcast and how it like relates to this adaptation. And we're also going to talk about a little news, a little gossip, some new special segment for you guys. That's actually really exciting. We're going to talk about some great journalists. So actually, let's get started with a little bit of Limetown. So if you're not familiar with the podcast, it's basically about a journalist that discovers about a missing, like 350 people.
I think it's like 326.
26 people go missing in a small town that they just kind of up and vanish and go away. And it's all about her investigation. She's working with NPR, and that she just kind of does, like, no one really cares after a while.
Right. And it's kind of interesting because it's in Tennessee. They build this Limetown.
Yeah.
And people come and flock to it for this research institution, and it's built, and then all of a sudden they get a 911 dispatch and everyone has disappeared.
Yeah.
And so just like any kind of news, it's just kind of the news that they kind of just disappeared Limetown. But Jessica Biel's character is very much, she's almost psychotic about it, which I find very interesting because that layer there for me was kind of interesting because she's a little dark herself.
Yeah, which is, I'm not used to seeing her except for her previous role.
Right.
Sinner was probably the one that you kind of see her getting a little bit darker. But yeah, the whole premise is kind of, we have a lot of questions at the top starting off. It's just like we don't really understand like why no one really cared enough to like investigate more, or like there was just no answers, and she's the only one that has like a link that's sort of drawing her back.
Yes, and she has the link, as we know, like her uncle was there. But it's interesting, again, because there's a lot, and we were talking about this in both episodes, there's a lot of numbers.
Yes.
You know, like the episode starts, there's a lot of like 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 7, 2, 3, 6, like that keep going through and showing. So I'm really intrigued like what these numbers mean.
There's always going to be some sort of meaning. I feel like when you have these kind of societies that are meant to be very controlled, numbers is usually a way that they assign. Instead of having a name, you get a number. It's like we were talking a little bit like Holocausty, where it's like everyone has like a number assigned to them and like a role.
Right.
It's very weird.
And it's also, it reminds me of like Pleasantville.
Yes.
So, you know, if you have watched this or have seen the podcast, you know, they created this like pleasant town that you would want to live in, but it's like, that's almost creepy to me too. Like I would never live there. You couldn't pay me to move in.
And the suburbs are crazy.
But it's just like, there's no money exchanged in Limetown.
That's so insane.
Yes. So the whole thing of actually getting people to come to this town, I thought was just so odd. Like, it's in the middle of Tennessee.
I would never sign up for this. Like, I would never be like, yeah, let's do an experiment where we're all living in some sort of perfect
Right.
I mean, unless it's like Gilmore Girls and it's fine. But I mean, like, but this is the whole extra level of like, nah, not happening.
Yeah, it just seems, but even from the get-go, when you see some of these actors, it's kind of like they're doing this like town fair buzz.
Yes.
But certain people, you can tell, are kind of not like buying the sauce.
Yeah.
And they're there with maybe their husbands that took them or this or that, but it's like you can kind of tell that they're a little bit weirded out too.
It's almost also like Handmaid's Tale-ish, where there's people fighting against or like discovering things and slowly not really buying, like what you say, drinking the Kool-Aid. But yeah, I think the interesting part is how you're introduced to these characters and worlds, because you're kind of like, okay, so we don't know what's happening and now we're trying to figure it out, but you get like snippets of the past and the present.
And again, like Jessica Biel, she's got a love interest.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really know who this woman is, but she's got a woman love interest, but they fixate on this birthmark recording. I don't even know why she recorded that, but she's very into recording.
Yeah, she's very into recording everything.
But then she re-watched it in a scene, and this birthmark, to me, there's some correlation with her in Limetown that we just don't know about yet. That's like kind of what I gathered, but I'm like, what is this birthmark?
Yeah.
That she has? Because then she references the birthmark when she's talking about the Jane Doe character that disappeared, that probably like
oh yes,
cut herself up to erase her birthmark. So I'm like, they're kind of layering that for us, I feel like, from the beginning, that there's way more to Jessica Biel's character than we know.
I kind of feel like this is the kind of show that I'm going to feel like such an idiot, like, at the end. You know what I mean? Like, right now, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. But towards the end, I was like, how did I miss that? There were so many clues that were just telling me, like, this is what you should have been looking at. And I think when they said you're always asking the wrong questions and focusing on, like, the wrong things, I kind of feel like the writers and creators are making us focus on certain things in particular.
Right.
And it's just going to be something that was just, like, just to the left or to the right of what we were looking at.
I think we're all going to go back and end up watching it all over again. Because something maybe like with the numbers, like something that's so just exactly what you said. We're looking at the wrong things. They even have like statements that are so bold.
Yes.
Like that, where you're like, there's some underlying meaning just in that sentence.
Yeah, a lot of use of repetitive numbers, sayings, like the birthmark, she played it over and over again. There's a lot of things that they do purposely.
Yes.
And so I don't know if it was because also the podcast had to repeat a lot of things for its listeners, since there's like a time when you don't, here we can just stream it and just watch 2 episodes back to back. But when you're like waiting for the next episode in the podcast, what was your experience like listening to the podcast versus like watching it?
I absolutely love the podcast. It was great. It was creepy, and it was done so well. Like you almost felt like you were in the room with them. And sometimes you don't get that with those kind of podcasts. But I think they did an amazing job of adapting it for television. There's definitely some differences, but when I was looking at people's comments today all over the place, a lot of big podcast fans were happy with the results of how the show came out.
It's kind of like when you go watch a Disney movie, like when they do the, the live version, like you kind of still want them to stick to the story. When they reimagine it or they kind of have a little bit more freedom with it, I always end up kind of being disappointed because I know what I'm going into and I know what I'm expecting. So when they kind of change things, like too many things, I get upset.
And then there are some spots in it that are so, like, you feel like you're sitting in the podcast.
Yes.
Which I really liked, because there were moments that I was like, this is just directly taken from the podcast. And they did it the way that I envisioned, as I'm going to call Limetown Pleasantville, was exactly how they portrayed it on the show. Like the white picket fences, but I was like, this is exactly what I envisioned.
And I kind of love that you can still hear her doing the recordings, and like it opens up with, like, because that's the first introduction in the first episode. If you listen to the podcast, she's just kind of giving you a breakdown. It's like word for word almost. We see her in the booth doing like her mouth exercises and everything, and I would that she's actually in the control room and doing her thing.
Yes, and I think her character is quite a bit more layered in the television show than she was pretty straightforward through the podcast. But now, like, again, we're seeing her. She obviously has a female love interest. Yes. We're seeing her doing some flashbacks with Emil, Stanley Tucci's character, which I love that they introduced him right away. I was like, I hope he's not coming like in episode 7.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in it from the beginning. So I'm like, that's a kind of a little twist there too.
Yeah, and I think for me, I don't know if it was for you, but listening to it was, I wouldn't say it was creepier, but I got into my head a lot more just listening to it. Like, I have a worse imagination. Like, when I saw, like, what Limetown actually looked like in present day, it was a lot less creepy than what I imagined.
Right.
Okay, because I was like, oh, this is like a haunted house, like, style, like, cobwebs everywhere. But I was like, okay, I can see this was a town.
Yes.
That's now abandoned. My brain was going into the gutter and just, like...
Because I think, and I think that's what's fun about podcasts, because you can kind of imagine further, and then when it's kind of presented for you. But I did think one kind of other fun, unique thing was that they didn't mention that every home, and this is new, had a hatch that went down into the caves.
Yeah.
And when they explored that, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, because it's something that I don't know how you would even describe that in...
Creepy?
In a podcast per se, because you're trying to create the world and it's all through sounds primarily. I mean, she can only say, like, there was this guy or whatever in descriptive words, but to the sense of, like, when we were having that episode, and the woman was looking away from her and just towards, we were like, is she looking at the secret cave door, or is it, we ended up knowing it was a little girl,
right? But
it's kind of those things that you don't pick up on, and I think podcast, that's
kind of like, again, kind of something new in that direction, because then it leads everyone who listened to the podcast, like, it kind of made my mind twirl, and I was like, did the people move in? Did they know that these were there? Was it secret? Was it built? What's going to happen? Did they come up and still, like, my mind is in 1,000 places with those caves.
And also, like, the drawings, that scene about the drawing at the same image, like, there's certain things that visually get you. You're just like, oh, and then the last image where he put the screaming face, y'all, that was, no, I was done. I was not having it. I was like, no.
And, but the way they played that scene out was so, again, directly the way that I imagined it in the podcast. And then they, like, reenacted it, and I was like, this is exactly how I imagined this scene. So again, like, I think they did a really great job of adding in some new things for us, but also really keeping it to kind of what the podcast was. I mean, I like the flashbacks. I like kind of the more layers and the depth.
Yeah, and she doesn't talk to her mom. There's like different.
That's a good call too, because in the podcast she gets that phone call where her mom is, we don't know what's happening to her mom, and in the episodes she tells us that she no longer talks to her mom and dad and that they left her. So that makes me wonder what's going on with Emil's character and her more involvement in Limetown that maybe she doesn't
it's so good. It's so good. But before we get on to our next topic, Susie's got a little something for you guys to say.
We just want to thank everyone out there for making us the ESPN of TV talk. If you are on YouTube, subscribe, leave a comment, leave us 5 stars on iTunes, and also please follow us Twitter and Instagram at AfterBuzz TV. But make sure you leave us some comments. Join our live chats, because we love to answer all of your questions. You guys are our biggest fans.
Yeah, we love to hear what you guys are thinking. We know that you guys are fans of the podcast. We'd love to hear what you guys are thinking so far of, like, the show. I mean, I'm loving it. I'm going to be honest. Like, this is I'm scared, but I'm very I'm in.
And I think for Facebook Watch, it's like, I think there's going to get some buzz even after what I saw today. It's getting great reviews, and I think that it's got some little legs, and people are going to jump on to this.
So I was like, oh, this is on Facebook. Cool. Yeah. Okay. But it's like, oh, this is on Facebook. This is going to be so great. You can be on social media and be like, listen, I'm sorry, I need to watch my show.
And again, you have, like, Jessica Biel and Stanley Tucci, like, two just great actors, but everything he does, he's just
so good.
He's phenomenal. I think he's going to turn really creepy in this for some
I
reason.
have a feeling you're right about that. There's something about the fact that when they said, this probably can go back into predictions eventually, but when they said, like, this is all I can tell you, I felt like, okay, so it has to be someone that knows her well enough, that knows that she's going to keep asking these questions, which is why I think we are on the same page about the creepy uncle.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And like, what happened to her parents? Well, I mean, she obviously makes a phone call to them, but again, it's like, why did they leave her? But I think that there's a lot of unanswered questions that, you know.
They need to get answered, is what we're saying. So we do have to talk about Winona, because we ended the first episode with a phone call from her. Her voice was disguised.
Yes.
And that was super creepy, because I hate when they, like, just hate that
that's my biggest fear, that, like, I'm going to pick up my cell phone and it's going to be some, like, creepy, weird, like, something like
I will contact you. You can't find me. Like, I will seek you out. It's like, really? Like, how'd you get my number? Who are you?
And again, it's almost like it's kind of cool because her boss had given up on her and was calling it a historical document.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden out appears this Winona character, the first person to ever come forth from surviving Limetown. And now it's turned into, like, a massive...
Yeah, and she's quite the character. Like, she doesn't seem to have... Her short-term memory is the only thing that's working. She has a really hard time with her long-term memory. We get snippets. She doesn't recognize that she tried to call Leah and get, like meet up at the park first, and then she has to go to her apartment, which ends up, you pointed out,
number 20 was the same number. Her apartment number was the same number as her house number,
or the one that she thought she was in, right?
Yes. So again, it's like we're seeing these weird number systems that are kind of happening, but she lives in number 27. And if you watch the podcast, you kind of have more of an understanding, or if you listen to the podcast. Excuse me.
Oh, true, yeah. If you're watching it with your brain, though.
You have more of an understanding of kind of what's going on. But again, we don't know if that's the way Limetown's going to go in the TV show. So we can only guess as to what's going on with Winona, but they give you a little flashback.
Yeah.
She's obviously got sliced at some point.
Yeah, they do give you the cuts, and they do introduce the whole idea of being implanted with something, or some sort of like brain work
that's going
scientific, because we
yes.
know it's science-based.
Yes.
The creator was doing it for an experiment. We all know that much at this point.
But she's definitely like had to write notes down, and somebody has told her how far she can go with Leah, which is crazy. But her main purpose,
and that
what was that?
That was, I don't know, but like how she just like,
right after she talked about her mom, that happened.
That creeped us out. That both of us, we were both like, this is weird. We were both.
But again, she kind of, I feel like when they do flashbacks of her, was like a little bit before they showed her getting some kind of brain something done. She seemed to be like a little bit weary of what was kind of Limetown.
Yeah, because she tells her husband at the time, I know what I'm getting myself into.
Yeah.
And the fact that she didn't even remember she had a daughter, but then chose to leave her, that whole thing is very questioningly, like, what, like, she seems like she wasn't happy there, but then she had a child. So
right. And she brings up, I think, well, first of all, going back to the scene where she becomes a janitor.
Right.
And she's catching on to, there's a man drawing, there's a man watching, another man's drawing, and then she sees that they're directly mimicking one another. And then all of a sudden she's hearing whoever this man is that everyone's there for, which I don't know who this is.
Yeah.
But it's crazy to me because that's when I think she realizes that there's something, I mean, she's reading like a mind is what it seems like to me.
And it's like, I don't know if you guys paid attention in this show and also in the pod, but it's like this weird low sound throughout that. And then I think they said something about like the listening, like you can hear him but he's not speaking.
Yes.
And it's almost like he's talking to you anyways,
and you're hearing it. She's like hearing him but he's not talking. And then he puts that huge, he says, go home, you've seen what you want to see. So that's the story that she's supposed to tell Leah, and then she just kind of like ends. But Leah's the one that picks up on Silva being her daughter, which is different than the podcast,
right?
Because we, again, a little bit there, but wow.
Yeah.
It's like,
I know. And like to end it, they leave you with the beginning of the first episode.
right.
They leave you with the man banging his head against her door,
Yes.
number 7, her hotel room. I assume motel.
More.
Yeah, and just going crazy, banging his head. We see the blood. We know he died, but then
Right.
there's no body.
But I think too, the last kind of part of this Winona character that I thought was kind of cool was that, again, we now know that there was a panic. She brings up the panic. And
people went crazy.
she leaves before the panic, and she leaves her daughter, and that's when Jessica Biel goes off on her, which I was like, oh, you go, girl.
Yeah.
But then we find out that her parents left her. So
Yeah, we were. I
the
was
whole
kind
thing
of.
is
If you're trying to get
strange.
a story out of someone, I don't know if that's the best
No.
tactic to attack the interviewee.
Yeah. But there's a lead up to whatever this so-called panic is, which is kind of, I'm like, what is
And the fact
happening?
the fact that everyone loses their mind in Limetown at some point, I feel like it's going to parallel with Leah's character and how she's already, I feel like she's already off
losing
her
her mind.
locker. But yeah, I feel like that is,
Yeah, I feel like she's going to go dark down the rabbit hole at some point.
well, clearly we're very much looking forward to like what
Yes.
comes next. I mean, even if you listen to the podcast, it's a totally different experience.
Yes.
And I'm very excited for like what episodes 3 and 4 are.
I know. We have to wait till next Wednesday.
I know, but you have some news for us.
Yes, what's really interesting, so again today the feedback and a lot of like articles came out, and the show, people are loving it that are watching it. And so Zach Akers and Skip Bronke are the creators of Limetown. It was their first foray into a podcast.
Can you imagine?
Crazy. Went number 1 within a couple of months. A book has now been written by them. But what's really cool is that Sinner was created by Jessica Biel's production company with Michelle Purple.
Okay.
So we know, this production company linked up with the creators of Limetown, and this is how this show came to be. But I found it interesting in Variety because the two boys said that when they would sit down with the women, that they were more dark and that they had so many crazy ideas that they almost had to like walk out of the room because
Really?
Jessica Biel and Michelle Purple and the director, whose name is Rebecca Thomas, I mean, they were getting so dark and they were blown away. But obviously, they all came together because this show is great. And I can't wait to see more from Zach and Skip because they have done no TV. This is like their
Wow.
first big production.
It was great.
And so for them, I'm like, what else do these guys have up
I mean,
their
they're great
sleeve?
storytellers.
Great storytellers.
And like the way they just kind of make you beg for more.
Yes.
They leave you with that. Like, and that's really hard to do. To just
Right.
like, please, can I have some more?
So I'm just like blown away by them and by Jessica Biel and Michelle Purple because the 4 of them together have just really, I mean, newsworthy. The show's doing really good. So everybody needs to
that's
run
great.
and watch it.
And I'm not too surprised. I'm not surprised that the women were able to go creepier and darker, just because like I know my own brain,
Right.
And so I'm just like, yeah, I'm not surprised. Like, of course we were able to go creepier and darker.
Yes.
We also have a special segment for you guys because our lovely protagonist, she is a journalist and she does a lot of investigative work. I thought it was great to highlight women journalists who have actually done amazing work and their discoveries. Ooh, there we go. So today I'm going to be talking about Nellie Bly. She's an American journalist that basically invented immersive journalism as we know it. So I thought that was perfect for today. Where like she basically got down and dirty on all the places she went to. She was inspired by Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days, and she wanted to see if it was possible to do it. And she did do it. She managed to do it in 70 2 days. Not only that, she also was really interested in the treatment of patients in asylums, but instead of doing this typical introductions or like interviews with patients, she acted like she was crazy so she could get admitted and then do the full-on investigation that way. And she actually also got patented several inventions, including like modern milk cans that we like so she had time to do all of that and still patent products. It's like, this woman, she's amazing.
Yes.
And if you're hearing us on the podcast, we have a picture up of Nellie Bly if you're interested in what she looked like. But yeah, that's amazing, like to like be that brave.
Right. Especially, I mean, this is obviously
like 1800s.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was she was born in 1864 and died in 1922. So yeah, women weren't necessarily doing what she was doing
at that time.
But yeah, because of her, we've had a lot of great women who we will keep on telling you guys about on this show as we continue with this podcast and TV show adaptation. Right. So yeah, girl, do you have any predictions for us? I know we talked a little bit about them.
Right, which is kind of
AfterBuzz TV predictions.
It's hard. I feel like in the first episode, you're so like you just want to talk about what you think is going to happen. So, I mean, Emil's character, Stanley Tucci, I think we're going to see more of him and what he's all about. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I just predict that there's something really weird with Leah Haddock, Stanley Tucci's character, Limetown. Like, was she there? Like, was she brainwashed? Does she have a chip? Do we not know? I don't know. There's just kind of, she's just creeping me out a little bit.
Yeah, I'm very like nervous about, I'm excited, but I'm very nervous about the next episodes because I know it's going to get even more creepier. Like, I just know, like, the more, like, I kind of feel like the more that you're on the outside of the story and you don't know much about it, it's fine. Like, you're okay. We're good. Like, it's fine. But like, the more I investigate, I'm like, I don't really want to be here, guys. This is not the party I signed up for. I just feel like I don't want to be here.
Oh, I think it's going to get darker.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So much more dark. And I also think, I mean, I feel like those caves and like the little hatches were there for a reason. And like, I just have this weird feeling that they were like, scientists were coming through the caves and coming to people's houses and like, were they taking them and then brainwashing them and then putting them back in the house? Like, those caves have more of a purpose than maybe just that's how they escaped Limetown. But I want to know like what's more behind those creepy caves.
I mean, for me, anything with caves, you guys, makes me I told you, it makes me think of it. I just feel like the way they had the map out and like all the tunnels and the balloons, and I'm like, all right, is this going to be tied in with it at some point? Because I'm freaking out. But the truth is, like, so the doors don't lock, but anyone can come into your house through those caves as well.
And we also saw a whole slaughtering of pigs.
Yeah.
And so, were they animal testing? Was that like just what they used to eat in Limetown? So like, there's something more with just that weird scene with like a bunch of slaughtered animals that was kind of...
I'm going to say it's going to get more graphic as time goes, because I feel like for the first 2 episodes, there was a lot that was shown, but you also could use your imagination, but I almost feel like we're going to see a lot more blood being shed. At this point, like, it's not going to be all in my head. It's not going to be like Jaws. I'm actually going to see the shark.
And I think, too, like, Winona's character kind of blew me out of the water. Like, she was her acting was great, the woman who plays her character, but, like, she was a very in-depth, like, she was great. There was just something really there for me. So I'm so excited for them to introduce the next few people that have been at Limetown, because I think they're all going to be, like, really... In the podcast, they're all fascinating, quirky, and kind of weird. Yeah. So it's like, I feel like these new characters are going to be the same, and we're going to kind of, I think it's going to be great.
And you're right, because in the podcast, I kind of felt like, I don't really know this person.
Yeah.
But in the show, I was like, she could be my neighbor.
Oh, yeah.
That was like the biggest difference for me, was like in the podcast, I was a little bit more detached. Like, I was like, these people.
Yeah.
But watching her and seeing how normal she was, or seeing like it didn't feel as abstract, I guess. Yes. I'd say.
So that's why I'm like, who are the next characters going to be and what will they be like? And also, what are they going to like tell the Haddock? I don't want to know.
I don't know. Well, you guys got to let us know what you guys think. We are more than happy to be covering this. Honestly, this has been, I know it's a late show, but we are very excited to be here. You guys can always check us out every week. I am Delia Gomez. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at It's Delia Gomez.
And I am Susie G. I am on Twitter and Instagram at Susie G Styles.
Thank you guys so much. Have a good night.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.